Whether I'm doing one of my many DaVinci Resolve tutorials for this here YouTube channel, one of my shorts for Instagram or TikTok, one of my occasional tech-style review videos, or even one of my cinematic narrative side quests that I like to do every now and again, they all have one thing in common: motion VFX. I like to use motion VFX in a bunch of my videos just because they're super convenient, they look great, and they save me a whole bunch of time. So in this video, I'm going to show you through my favorite plugins and the projects I like to use them in. Now, yes, this is a sponsored video. Motion VFX reached out to me and asked me to tell you all about the plugins that I like to use. However, they don't sponsor me the rest of the time. I just like using their plugins. They did pay me to tell you about why I like using their plugins, but they don't pay me to actually use them. Hopefully that makes sense. Now, Motion VFX have currently got their site-wide Black Friday deal going on where you can get 30% off everything across the entire site. Just use the code FINAL at checkout. There are also some additional deals where you can get an additional 20% off certain packs at certain times as well, meaning you can get up to 50% off. There's a link down in the description so you can go check it out for yourself. Right, let's kick things off with those cinematic-y side quest videos that I like to make every now and again. Here's a recent one I shot and cobbled together. Hey, it's Alex. I can't get to the phone at the minute, but if you leave a message, I'll get right back to you. I know, it's a little bit cliche, it's a little bit on the nose, but I had fun. I didn't really have a plan when I was shooting it. I just kind of shot as I was going through London for an event and I had to stay a night in a hotel. Kind of shot it, tried to make it nice and moody without really knowing what I was going to do with it. And then I put it all together in the edit, and that's what we ended up with. I liked it. I had fun. Anyway, now I used one of the Motion VFX plugins called M-Documentary to help kind of bring all of that together. And here it is, M-Documentary. Now, if we scroll down, the first thing I want to mention is it does include 5 powerful LUTs as well. I actually used the Night Walker LUT on all of the shots, which I'll show you in a second. And then it includes 72 tools to craft a perfect narrative. We've got things like these interesting freeze frames. We've got a bunch of different overlay effects. We've got typography, and these are the titles that I used throughout that little short. We've got animated timelines, transitions, backgrounds, and then movements. Now, the movements are quite interesting as well, so I'll show you those on the timeline in a second. And here it is. So to access any of the Motion VFX stuff, once installed, you'll open up the effects library, come down to the toolbox. If we go to video transitions, Motion VFX, we've got M-Documentary, and then we've got all of the different transitions within here. We've got flash, flicker, glass, light leaks. We've got a rewind effect and a time jump. We can preview them just using our mouse like so, and then when you're ready to go, you just drag and drop. If we go down to titles, Motion VFX, M-Documentary, we've got different categories within there. The backgrounds are actually titles, so then you can just click, drag, and drop them on your timeline, and they're good to go. This one, you'll notice, doesn't fit my aspect ratio because I used a super wide aspect ratio. But if you give them a click on the timeline, there is a mode option. Change that from pan and scan to letterbox, and then it'll just punch it in to actually fit and work just like so. All of the backgrounds have different content controls. You can change the position, you can change the dirt type, the color, the mask position, which is this sort of white area down here, the grain, the particles, the light spots. Whatever you need to do, just customize them as required. Then we've got timelines. I did use a few of these just to kind of show the little jumps in time, which was this one, documentary time range. And then we've got an axis, a timeline, and a year. Most of the good stuff is in typography. And again, we've got a bunch of different titles. You can just preview them, have a little look, and then once you've found the one that you like, just drop it on your timeline. Now, one of the nice things with the way that Motion VFX works is once you've installed these plugins, which you do so using that M installer, which is nice and handy. It just sits on your computer. As soon as you've purchased anything, any of the plugins will appear. You just hit install and off you go. And that will also install any fonts that you need as well. So you don't need to worry about installing fonts. Everything comes included. But that doesn't mean you need to use the default fonts all of the time. So for example, in this intro, we've got moody music and we've got this title here, which I think looks cool and it works well. But if we give it a click, we've got font. We can change this to whatever we like. So let's go with something a little bit goofier. Let's say we're doing a fun little video for something else. Let's increase that. And rather than this moody music, let's grab something a little bit jazzier. Hit play. And you can completely change the general feel and the vibe. Now, if we keep scrolling down, we've got effects within here, Motion VFX. Let's go to our M documentary, and we've got freeze frames, which are these kind of little punch-ins. You have to mess around with Fusion to get those to work. And then we got movements. Now, these are cool. So these are these punch-ins. You've kind of got a punch in, a punch out. We've got a flash. We've got horizontal movements and vertical movements. But it comes with these kind of overlays, these dust overlays, and they're layered, which gives you a really cool 3D kind of effect. Now, I actually used one of these in this project over here. You can see the particles, and we slowly punch in. I really toned it down because I didn't want it to be too obvious. But if we get rid of that one, grab this horizontal move and drop it on this adjustment clip, and hit play, you can see we've got this horizontal movement with all of these layers, and it looks really quite cool. Now here it's quite obvious. This would work if you're showing some old photos, for example. But in this example, what I'd like to do is come to particles within the inspector, just tone this down, just like so. We could turn them off if we didn't like them, or we can adjust the color, the apply mode, and change the angle of the different layers. We can also change the different effects and the amount of movement that we have applied. We also have overlay effects, and we've got one at the top here called anamorphic. We've got blurring, censoring, double exposures, dreamy looks, all sorts of stuff going on here. I applied the M documentary blurring over the entire thing. If you have a look at this frame, we've got just a little bit of blurring at the top and the bottom, and that's because of this M documentary blurring. And if I just toggle that off, you can see it's just adding a bit of softness to the edges, which just I quite liked. I think it fit the tone that I was going for. But once again, you can come in, you can customize the blur amount, you can invert it, you can change the range, the start, the end, and the offset. Right at the very end of this edit, let me show you this super quick. I actually added the anamorphic effect. Even though it was anamorphic anyway, I wanted it to kind of feel a bit ethereal, a bit kind of strange. So I added the anamorphic effect as well. And then I also added this film burn. Now, this over here is the film burn. I didn't want a film burn effect. I wanted it to kind of look like sirens going on in the background. So I just tweaked that slightly so that it looks like there's some red and blues going on to give almost kind of a siren style effect. So you can use a bunch of these effects as their intended purpose, but also for their unintended purposes as well. And the last thing, LUTs. If you install any of the Motion VFX plugins which include LUTs, the LUTs are automatically installed for you as well. So again, it's not something additional you need to do. As soon as they're installed, the LUTs will appear. And to access them, we jump over to the color page. Here's this shot here, and we've got, you can see, really simple grade going on, some exposure, some balance, some white balance, some contrast, some saturation, although they're not actually doing anything. And this one here has my LUT applied. So if we just toggle that on and off, you can see what it's doing. Let's just reset this node. If we open up the LUT in the top left-hand corner of the color page, we'll see our LUT folder here. And if we scroll down, there is a dedicated Motion VFX folder. And then we've got all of the subcategories, all of the different plugins available within here. I've got the M documentary, and you can see the 5 LUTs here. You can just preview them, have a little look. Once you've found the one that you like, you can click and drag onto a node, or you can even just make sure your node is selected, then double click on the LUT, and it will be applied like so. Right, next up, short form. My short form content, my vertical videos, my reels, my shorts, whatever you want to call them. For all of these, I use a plugin by MVFX called MReels. Now, MReels has 50 eye-catching presets for vertical content shorts for DaVinci Resolve. And if we scroll down, we can see we've got a bunch of different overlay effects. We've got these pre-edited reels, which I'll show you in a second, split screens, transitions, and typography. Now, one of the cool things with this, even though it's called MReels, it actually works for vertical, square, and horizontal timelines. So you don't only have to use these on vertical videos, you can use them wherever, basically. So here we are in DaVinci Resolve. I've got a vertical timeline set up and ready. And once again, if we open up the effects library, let's go to video transitions for starters, motion VFX, MReels, and then we have 10 different transitions within here. We can scrub through and we can have a look at all of these. Now, they're all nice and quick and simple transitions. I generally use this MReels transition 2, which is just like a blue flash because it's nice and simple. I like the way it looks. And then I also like this MReels transition number 6, which is kind of like a rip paper kind of thing. I've used this one a bunch and lots of people have asked where it's from. And it is, of course, from MReels. So if we drop this on the edit point, give it a play, and there we go. Nice, simple little rip transition. I usually use a nice little sound effect on there to really sell the ripping kind of effect. If we give it a click, open up the inspector, we've got some transition controls for the zoom amount. We can also toggle on or off the grain, change the grain power and the shake, as well as amending all of these circle controls. So if you don't want the circle, turn it off. Or you can change the size of it, the seed, the strength, the wobble, the scale, all that different stuff. And remember, these are just standard transitions. So if you've customized anything, right-click the transition on the timeline, create a transition preset, and you can save it as a new preset in your effects library. So now if we go to video transitions, scroll down to the users area, we've got MReels transition 06. Now, if we keep scrolling down, we've got our titles. If we go to the MReels, we've got 11 different titles within here. Once again, nicely formatted for our vertical formats, but will work on horizontal videos as well. This is the one I like to use to kind of just tell everyone what my short is going to be about, but I use some of the others here and there as well. Now, if we keep going down, we've got effects. So let's go to the Reels effects. We've got overlays, things like an 8mm frame, if that's the kind of aesthetic you're going for, dark colors, dispersion, a freeze kind of effect, grid. Halation is in here, which is interesting because this is a halation which doesn't require the studio version of DaVinci Resolve. So if you want an halation kind of effect, that's a good one. And then we've got zooms, hair and dust, and all that sort of stuff. We've got split screen effects, just like so. And the last one I want to show you, reels. Now, these reels are interesting because they're kind of pre-edited reels. So you don't really need to do anything. You just drop your own footage in and it'll automatically do the cuts and do some simple text for you as well. So if you want a super simple vertical video, these are quite interesting. But there is a very particular way you have to use them. So if I was to drop one of these reels on any of my clips, give it a click, open the inspector, you will see it says built for Fusion Clip with 4 sources. So if you've never used a Fusion Clip, here's what you need to do. You take your 4 pieces of video, so your 4 clips, they could be images, they could be videos, whatever you want, and you put them on your timeline like this. You stack them up vertically. Then if we highlight all of them, right-click, and we're going to create a new Fusion Clip, and it's going to look just like this. Now, you don't need to do this, but let me demonstrate. If I right-click this Fusion Clip and open it in the Fusion page, you can see what that actually does is it contains all 4 pieces of media. It contains all 4 of those clips. They're just stacked together. Now, with that done, we can grab our reel number 1, pop that on there, hit play. Let's scrub this a bit quicker. And you can see it's actually doing the cuts for us, and it's got some nice text on there. Job done. If we give that one a click, open up the inspector, we've got the content control, so we can move the positioning of each of the individual clips. We've got text, so we can change the text and the font and whatever else. And we can change the frame controls down here. If we get rid of that one, let's grab like 09 instead. Give this one a play. This one actually needs 5 clips, but you get the idea. So you can have a little play with these, grabbing these different sort of pre-edited things together, slap them on your clips. This one's got some transitions going on as well, and some zooms. and off you go. Next up, let's talk about my techie kind of review style-y videos. My techie kind of videos. There's two that I like to use. There's M Keynote, which there's now a new version called M Keynote 2. It contains 100 plus essential tools with that Apple style polish. And if we scroll on down on the website, this is what you get. This is the kind of aesthetic they're going for. And if we keep going down, you can see you've got a bunch of different titles. Scroll down, we've got some effects. We've got some transitions. Here's that liquid glass going on. Some add-ons, some backgrounds, some infographics, and placeholders. Oh, and social media as well. And then the other one I like to use, which is less colorful and a bit just kind of bolder, sharper, maybe, is a relatively old one, actually. It's called M Product. This is a complete set of product-centered tools, but I just like it for my techie kind of videos. We've got really kind of bold text, and it's nice and big and obvious. I just like this one. It's very different. It's got the monotone look rather than those bright colors of Keynote, so I actually sometimes even use these two together. We've got some calls to action. Once again, we've got infographics, some nice bold typography going on down here, as well as logos, placeholders, effects, and transitions. So with those two, I've kind of got all of my bases covered. And you will see these used a lot in my videos. So this here is my timeline for a recent techie video I made about a laptop. And as you can see, we're using one of the M Keynote 2 backgrounds here. This is the M Keynote 2 Gradient Flux. And the title is the M Product 04. And I use this as kind of the chapter kind of titles, like so, to separate all of the different bits that I'm talking about. Anytime that I was showing some important information, any screenshots, once again, we used the gradient background just because I quite liked it, to be honest. It looked quite nice. But if we go right back to the intro, I used a bunch of the M product titles just to kick things off and make it nice and bold and show some of the key information. We've got the screen information over here, the display, more display information. You get the idea. And it's just super quick and easy, drag and drop, and off we go. The M Keynote also has some nice bar charts, so I used these bar charts again with that gradient flux background going on here when I wanted to show some of the key information. As before, it's all dead easy. If we open up the transitions, if we come down, we've got the M Keynote 2 with all of our transitions within there, and M Product the same once again. Titles, M Keynote, we've got our add-ons, which are kind of like little pop-ins, so we can highlight certain things if we want to. There's our liquid glass once again. We've got backgrounds. So if we grab like the gradient flux and bring it down, you just plunk it straight on your timeline, give it a click, and there you go. Now, some of these are quite heavy. If we open up the inspector, we can change the in and out. So if we want them to actually animate in, this one's got like a fade. We can toggle that on or off. And then once again, we've got a bunch of different settings. So you can make these run a little bit better by turning things like the glow and the gradient off. So then you'll get slightly better playback. Some of the effects are just particularly heavy. Also, don't forget, because these are simple titles, you can put them into power bins. So if I open up my media pool, I've got my power bins over here. Once I've made any amendments to this background, if I want to save it for later, I can drop it in a power bin. And then I can grab that out of my power bin in any future projects. And everything that I changed will be there ready to go. M Product, again, very similar. Calls to action, infographics, logos, and typography. And then last but not least, down in effects, we've got our M Keynote 2 with overlays, placeholders, and split screens. And M Products with effects and placeholders once again. And just some general advice, I guess. Try and find the plugins which just have the most value for you, that give you the most use out of them. You can relatively quickly change the colors, change the font, and kind of change the feel of some of these titles. So if you find something you really like, you don't just have to use it for reviews or documentaries. You can use it in vlogs or travel videos or whatever. So rather than spending too much focus on the font, look at the design, look at the general feel of the thing that you're buying, and think if you can make use of it in a bunch of different projects rather than just that one particular project you're working on. Now, that might sound really obvious. Apologies if it does. But you know, you've got to get your money's worth out of these things. Anyway, I think that about covers everything. Hopefully you found this video useful. Do check the links down in the description below, and don't forget to use the code FINAL at checkout to get your 30% off. Also check out that other ongoing deals to see if you can save even more. Thanks for watching. Take it easy. I'll catch you next time.